Welcome back, one and all, and you see we're here for what is going to be a very wet, heavy rain throughout the whole race here at the Sochi Autodromo in Russia for round 4 of the SFR Speed Force Racing Reserve League. And we're ready to go out in qualifying, ready running the wet setup here. Obviously, of course, with the race in mind, it's going to make qualifying a little bit more difficult, of course, running a bit more downforce than I would ideally want. You see a very slow bank lap set on the medium tyres so far. You see we go on to our first lap on the soft, slightly cutting the corner there and getting invalidation. But this is going to be our fastest lap. The last lap, of course, we're now currently down in 14th position. You see already on the main straight, we are gaining on our time as we go through the slight kink that is turn 1. That, it's questionably a turn. And as you come down into the hard braking zone of turn 2, of course, the end of the DRS straight. Dropping down into first, get a good run out of 2, and then in the long sweeping corner of 3, which takes up most of the first sector now. As we're constantly gaining time on these soft compound tyres. And we now drop down into turn 4, taking a nice bit of curb and running wide onto the exit curb as well. We keep looking at almost 4 tenths up on our personal best, 4 tenths down on Clarky Boy up in front, new to the Reserve League, and already Fly. He was absolutely electric in qualifying. Fair play to him. See, we're making time up through this middle sector. The downforce really helping us carry the speed through the corners now as we go towards turn 10. Of course, opening up onto the next DRS straight now. We climb up through the gears in hot lap and max fuel mix DRS open now, keeping nice and tight to the wall to take the shortest run to 12 and 13. And as we drop down, setting the fastest middle sector now, drop down to 3rd gear, and we work our way through this last sector over a second up on our previous time we set at the start of the session. So we're looking to propel ourselves up the grid, hoping to find a few more places than we already have. We're down in 17th at the moment now, into turn 17, the penultimate corner now towards turn 18, the final corner. As we run towards the line, it's going to put us up into P6, which eventually turned into P9. And we see we're on the formation lap here, trying to get a feel for the car. So we've been hit from behind by one of the Toro Rossos, which ruined our formation lap. So that put an end to that. Man. But now as we come to the race, no mucking about at all. We've got 4 lights and 5 lights now. And it is lights out and away we go for this very, very wet race around the Sochi Autodromo. See, we've not had the best start. McLaren already looking onto the back of us. We've got to be careful of the cars on the inside here. As we now run onto the grass a tiny bit there, trying to give the cars on the inside a bit of room now. We're going to go towards turn 2. First time braking heavy in the wet. And we see we're trying to make moves round the outside of the Toro Rosso and the Mercedes. Run over the curb a tiny bit, get away with it now as we run through the long sweeping turn 3. How hard do we dare push on the throttle here? And we could be looking round the outside of the Red Bull. He's ghosting all over the shop. So we end up slotting in just behind him. We've got 2 cars up inside as we backed off to not go into the back of the Red Bull. Nathan, I think, has come up from about P17. So what a start from him as the Toro Rosso loses it on our inside. And the Red Bull's got a bit wide here. We're going to try and go up the inside into turn 7. Go through turn 6 now into turn 7. We're on the inside of him, which he's going to run a little bit wide. And we're just going to have the speed and momentum now as we go into turn 8, keeping that P8 position. We've managed to make up 1 place on the start. So good stuff so far. And as we now come on to the main straight that isn't the pit straight, and we see we've got the Red Bull still just behind us. We're going to put it up into hot lap to try and do our best to defend. But we see we're right closing up to the Alpha in front, who's also battling. We sort of look to the inside half-heartedly. It's a bit late on the brakes now. That could put the Red Bull into the back of us. And now it's a nice truck. I mean, what a camera angle. Beautiful truck and railings. And you see now the Red Bull looking up our inside here. We're going to go very deep into the corner to try and defend the position course. And then switches to the inside. If you go on the outside of 15, it switches to the inside of 60. But the Red Bull is going to be side by side of us as we go towards the penultimate corner. We try and hang it round the outside, but he's still going to be there. He's got very good grip so far. And we have to slot in behind as we go onto the main straight now, completing lap 1, what has been a very eventful lap 1 so far. And after a safety car was called out at lap 2, we're going to be racing once again at the end of lap 4. Just about to start lap 5. We'll see, can we do anything in front? Looks like the train in front has got a much better exit. We had a lot of wheel spin coming out of turn 1 into the Mercedes. Looks too far back to do anything on this time around. But can we pick up the pieces from what could happen up the road here. Drop it down into lanes, try and get a bit better traction to come at the corner. There seems to be a slight collision there. It looks like it could be one of the Williams. And the McLaren closes right back up to us as well. We're trying to go around the outside of the Alfa Romeo here. We've got a car on the outside that looks like it could be one of the Haas drivers. And the Alfa just stays ahead of us as we're now up into P6 from what has happened there. Made up, I think, 2 places. We've got a McLaren right behind us as well. And he's got a very good exit. Already looking up our inside. We're going to keep the position this time around. And now on to lap 6 now. And we see we've got McLaren looking up our inside here. He's going to make a late dive. We're going to give him the room and try and maybe work around the outside. But good, he's got a lot better pace than we have as things stand. The Mercedes could be looking at us as well now as we go through the long turn 3. How hard do you dare push the throttle, hoping not to spin out? And we go into turn number 4. And we bunched up as a quartet, I believe, with the Alfa up in P4. We got the Mercedes trying to send it down our inside here. We're going to try and do the switchback, try and make it work. Didn't expect him to go down the move, but gave him the space, and we haven't quite got momentum coming out the corner now. And you see, oh my God. How on earth is this a 10-second penalty? That is a warning at best. Shocking stuff, which could be massive considering how close we are to the pain. McLaren's gone deep in there, and we're going to try and pick up the pieces and see we just about squeeze through into P7. But how on earth is that a 10-second time penalty? A warning at best. Right, the whole race, I only got one other warning, so I would have got absolutely no penalties, which is massive around this track. You see, the Red Bull completely puts me off from my braking point. They go in way too deep now, already onto the curb on the outside, and we've lost so much speed now. The McLaren is right behind us. We're going to be coming the run towards turn 15. He's on our inside. Can we try and hold it around the outside like we did last time? At the start of lap 1, we're just about going to do it this time around, but will he have the better run out of the corner? So he's already looking to go upper inside, just hangs back. We're quite a bit deeper on the brakes, and we keep the position for the time being now. And as we now run out of the final corner onto the main straight, I'm going to put it up in a hot lap, doing our absolute best to defend the position, giving ourselves the best straight line speed we possibly can. Flat out now towards turn 1, but he's going to close on us constantly. And as we go into the braking zone, he's looking up our inside, and he's definitely got much more confidence than we do. Slight bit later on the brakes, and we have to slot in behind. And we've got another Mercedes right behind us as things stand. And the Haas closing up to the back of our train as well. And on lap 17, we see there's a right gaggle of cars up ahead now as they're battling for position quite aggressively. And we see now the McLaren on the outside, the Mercedes on the inside. And a slight, maybe a bit of contact between the two, I'm not sure. But we sit just behind this trio, hoping for a slight incident that could potentially push us up the order now. And we're late. We move later on to in lap 17. We're right on the back of the Mercedes of Alad, looking up what will turn to the inside for 12, but then the outside for 13. And we managed to slot ahead going into the braking zone. McLaren's gone very deep there. Could we potentially regain the position that we lost from him and move up in a P5? We might try on the inside like he did to us, but we're going to be a bit too far back, but he covers the inside line very well there. Good, I've got to say, good racing between all of us throughout the race. Very clean from what I saw. And what I felt I was relatively clean. As Mercedes behind comes into the pits now, we're going to be onto the back of the McLaren as we run towards turn 1. Can we do anything in the slipstream? Putting it up to the max in terms of energy uses and fuel loads. And as we fly towards the first corner, I think we're going to be too far back on this occasion, especially with how confident he is on the brakes. So we go a little bit deep into the corner now, and that's going to give the advantage to the Mercedes behind. Lose the back end as we get onto the curbs now, and as we run through turn 3, he's going to be on our outside here. And it looks like, oh, the McLaren's dropped it. He was pushing too hard, and he's retired from the session here. So we're going to slot just ahead of the Mercedes in P4. And as we push onwards now, the safety car has been called out for that crash, which is a massive benefit to us. And we decided to come into the pits because it was getting quite treacherous under throttle, especially with the rain not improving at all throughout the race. So we're going to have fresh, wet tyres for the end of the race. And if I'm honest, it was not about trying to overtake. It was just trying to stay on the track. It was the first time I've not used traction control in a full wet race. I always turn it off in the dry, but put it onto medium when we have a wet race in league racing. And I just wanted to have that confidence of the fresher tyres now. And you see, we're about to get racing once again with 5 laps remaining in this race. And we're going to be miles behind the Renault up in front. The Mercedes could be trying to have a go at us into turn 1 here. He's closing on us, but we've got good straight line speed on this occasion. If you go into turn number 2, we're just about going to hold off from him now as we move on to lap 24. See, the Renault's gone a little bit wide and a little bit squirmy. We're just about going to squeeze ahead of him, avoiding contact as he comes back onto the track. And we go into turn 5, number 5. We're up into P6. We look behind. He's gone a little bit wide once again. But now we've got the Red Bull on the final lap of the race who's managed to get past us here. Very good pace from him. And what I think is his first league race in this league as well. And we have to slot into P7. But a race of what could have been, because others had penalties in front. We didn't. And we're going to get that penalty reviewed by the SFR stewards. And we'll update you on that. But P7, not bad for a wet race. Hope everyone enjoyed.